Well, I know I opened up a can of worms this morning, jumping into a huge subject of, do we sin because we're sinners, or are we sinners because we sin? And it's a huge subject with many, many aspects of it. And for me just to jump in there and have a few minutes with it, it's I guess kind of brave, but I do want to say a few more things about where I went a while ago. First of all, I talked about that I don't believe that man became depraved humans because of Adam's sin. What I don't believe they were depraved, but I believe, if you caught it, that they actually became deprived. The whole problem came from being deprived of the garden, from being deprived of the tree of life. They died because they didn't have the tree of life. That's the only reason why they died, he says. He goes, we got to remove them from the garden, or they'll go back and they'll eat the tree of life and they'll live. And I've already gave the consequence. Now they're going to become dying beings. And the way they're going to do that is they're not going to have access to a tree of life. And so when they locked out the garden, they lost all the provision of the garden. They couldn't just walk, just do all the things they did before. But now they're out here doing life on their own. I talked about that. And so those three basic needs, I think, are huge. The need to survive, the need to avoid pain, and need to experience pleasure that we all have is in all of us today. We need to recognize it. There was a time, what this really jumped out at me at one time, when I was in the presence of a child who had disobeyed their parent. And when they got caught, the parent said, this was a little, like, I don't know, probably about a 3 or 4 year old. And when the parent said, did you do that? Well, it was obvious they'd done it. But immediately what they say, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And that parent looked at me and said, see there, they're just little born sinners. They're born liars. Nobody had to teach that child to lie. Nobody had to teach that child to disobey. Well, I put that in the back of my mind. I went, seriously? You really think that's why that child did that? It's because it's a depraved child that's born with this sin nature. It's its nature to sin. Instead of being its human nature to, first of all, want the pleasure of playing with the toys or eating the cookie, whatever it was they had done wrong, it was something they wanted to do. It was just something to bring them pleasure. And then when they saw the parents' look on their face, they're smart. They know they're fixing to be in trouble. And so what they do next? They avoided pain. Tried to avoid pain by saying, no, I didn't do it. That little child didn't understand a lie. This was not about, thou shalt not lie, you little sinner. Thou shalt not, don't disobey your parents. It wasn't one of those commandments that was there. The commandments were put in place because it's human nature to want to experience pleasure. It's human nature to want to avoid pain. It's human nature. Sometimes it's things as life and death, but usually what we're going through in life is not life and death. It's because we are wanting to have pleasure in life. We want that relationship, or we want that new car, or we want that good food, or we want that person, or we want something. It's human nature to want to experience pleasure. That doesn't make us bad. That God put that in us. He put it in us to want good food. He put the desire, he put a sexual desire in people. He put the desire for people to be comforted and to be able to build a place to get out of the weather. He made us able to do that. He gave us the ability, he gave us a mind, he gave us a will. We're not like animals. We can create. We make decisions that are not just by nature of Mother Nature. No, we make decisions because we've been made decision makers, because we're in the image of God. We can do things. We can build things. We can cook things. We can do things that bring us pleasure. We can also do things that can keep us from having harm. To keep us from being eaten by the wildlife, or being, dying and freezing in the cold. These are things that are human nature that God put in us. These are human. And so, but then also that child who's not even learned, doesn't know about don't lie or don't disobey your parent. They are living by human nature. They're born an innocent human that says, hey, I want that cookie. Okay, mama said, don't eat that cookie. I want the cookie. I'm going to eat the cookie. And then when what comes in and catches me and I've got chocolate chips stuck in my teeth, and I was like, no, I didn't do it. I'm not being a depraved sinner. I'm being human to escape or try to avoid the consequences of my decision. I don't think this is about being depraved. I don't think little children are born. I don't think when you look in the nursery, we used to be able to do that, look in the nursery and see all those babies, that there's a couple of those babies are God's beloved elect, and the rest of them are just created just so he can show his justice. You know, there's some people believe that God's original creation of man. I looked up, some of your basic doctrines that say, why was God created? Well, I mean, why did God create man? You got to go back to that. You got to go back further than the garden to really get it. You got to know what's the intent. Well, that's a big one. What's the original intent of God? Well, there's different aspects. If you are an Armenian person who believes in that theology, then you believe that God created humanity to be a free will being, to be able to bear his image and reflect his character, but also to be able to make choices, to choose, to voluntarily make him capable of voluntary love, choice, and relationship with him. That would be essential in showing his character. And then on the other hand, if you're Calvinist, it says that Calvinists believe God created humanity primary for his own glory, to manifest his divine attributes, to his existence. He made humans to display his sovereign power and pleasure. And these divine attributes, it's interesting. This here said, including, it's talking about, it just picks 4. I mean, there's many, but but it said his divine attributes, including justice, wrath, mercy, and grace. Well, people, if you were Calvinist, you say, yeah, that's why he created us. He created people to be able to show justice, wrath. It's funny, those 2 were first. And then it said mercy and grace. But what blew me away was what's not listed in those 4. Love. It's not even listed. What? The Bible never says God is just. God is wrathful. God is merciful. And God has grace. Even those things are true. But it does say God is love. So why did he make us? Did he create us just so he can show his own glory? That he needed somebody else? It sounds like that's what angels do. Just to be able to go and to be able to worship him. They believe that we were created to worship God. Like he needed more beings to worship him. And so to show his, I guess, I don't know who he's supposed to be showing his attributes to, the heavenly host, or to his elect, to certain people, the rest of them not to. But, so if we can, I don't really understand all that because it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I've studied it back and forth. It still doesn't make sense to me why God would make a creation. And most of them, he just created them to be burned forever. That if that's who you're showing your God is, I don't want that God. If that's his attributes, forget it. If that's the only way he can show he showed justice. Oh, he is a just God. And he can be wrathful. What is he wrathful about? He's wrathful about the things that are harmful to his humanity. And how he's just, the justice is he has restorative justice, not punitive justice. Any punitive justice that was done, any penalty of sin, which there was, the penalty of sin, the wages of sin was death, and Jesus paid it. He took the death penalty for all of us. He already did that. He showed us justice on the cross. That's what justice looks like. Has nothing to do with putting people in a burning pit forever or creating certain people for that. Creating Adam to sin, giving him a sin nature, and then burning him for doing what he was created to do. I don't care how you cut it. It comes down to that. What do you think of God? Did that child disobey their parent because they're a sinner? Or did they sin because they're in a world where justice has to be, where there has to be correction? The parent has to correct their child to discipline them. The Bible says a good parent would discipline their children. That's not an evil thing. That child, you're not beating the evil out of them. You're not casting the devil out of them. What you're doing is training that little mind on how to be the benefit of obedience, how to be a good parent, and how to love, the consequences of missing the mark. We're to teach our children the consequences of those things I call the Big Ten, the Ten Commandments. They have great consequences in doing those things. We are not to sin. But he said, if you do sin, he said, little children, I would that you sin not. But if you do sin, you have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. He's already there advocating for us. He did it from the foundation of the world. He already knew what he was going to do before he ever did it. So this is such a subject that we could go on and on about. But I'm looking forward to hearing maybe from some of y'all in private to maybe discuss a little bit more of this. God bless you.